Did President Trump sign with his hand or did he sign it with an Autopen? What do you think? My guess, he hand-signed. After all that he has said about his predecessor, former President Joe Biden, and his use of the Autopen for signing pardons. And guess who got a pardon today? President Trump pardoned Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar of South Texas. Currently, Republicans in the House have a very thin majority, and this pardon will keep Democratic Cuellar in the House. One thing President Trump is probably counting on, though, is that Democrat Cuellar has worked with Republicans. Another Democrat who works with Republicans is Senator John Fetterman. The senator joins me in just a moment. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill today, the House Judiciary Committee subpoenaed former special counsel Jack Smith, who twice indicted President Trump when President Trump was a candidate. Plus, could this be the treasure hunt of the century? The investigation of missing flight MH370 has reopened. Whoever finds the plane, which vanished 11 years ago, will get a massive payout. Also, our outrage of the day, it involves pedophile parties. You heard me right, pedophile parties. I will explain later in the hour. But first, he is not your typical politician. He doesn't just vote his party line. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is also not afraid to work across the aisle or to support some of President Trump's agenda to keep our government functioning. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman joins me. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Greta.
Okay. Sir, today there, of course, Henry Cuellar, Democratic Congressman of South Texas, got a pardon, which brings up the topic of another pardon that people are discussing, and that's Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel. Should he be pardoned?
Oh, yeah. I do support. I fully do. I absolutely do support. I think it's entirely appropriate to give him a pardon. I think that's the wrong thing at this time. To have Israel focusing on those kinds of things, and after the war and having to go forward, that might be unpopular within my party to have that view, but I do think it'd be appropriate, though. Although I haven't discussed this with anybody, but if that you've asked, I do support it.
What's to gain by not giving him a pardon? Because look at this thing, is that this trial has been going on for 5 years. It's a different system than we have, but it's been going on for 5 years, and at the same time, he's trying to protect that little itty-bitty country from enemies on all sides, including that horrible slaughter on October 7, 2023. So what do you think is the delay? Why doesn't President Herzog just do this? President Trump has asked for it, too.
I don't know. I have had the pleasure of meeting President Herzog multiple times, and he's a wonderful man. I don't know what his views are on this, though. But what I do believe, as the one Democrat, the unapologetic supporter of Israel after the Gaza war, I do think it's entirely appropriate at this time to do that. So, as someone that understands that might move against the party's view. But I think it's the right thing now because a lot of the criticism has been directed at Netanyahu through the entire war, and I reject that. If you have to pick a side, I'm going to always pick Israel and Netanyahu's side versus Hamas or Hezbollah or Iran through that, because that's essentially what it's been.
Well, it's sort of easy for me to pick a side. I suppose I shouldn't necessarily, as a journalist, pick a side. But let's face it, Hamas started it with the most vicious slaughter that you can think about. It's like, and if anyone has looked at the 47-minute tape or even one tape, they wore GoPro cameras as they were doing that slaughter. This one's not difficult for me.
Oh, I agree, and it shouldn't be. And as I've always been willing, disappointed, but to be the last man standing with Israel after this Gaza war, absolutely. I isolated myself. I fully supported destroying the Iranian nuclear facility, and also absolutely what was accomplished to break Hezbollah, to break Hamas, and to actually break Iran. Now we have the opportunity to move forward now. Looking at now the Abraham Accords are also a possibility now too. We don't want to distract it with this kinds of a trial. That's why I think it's appropriate to have a pardon for the prime minister.
It seems a lot of people think Israel is so far away, and indeed it is, but right here in our hemisphere is Venezuela. and there's not been a lot of attention on it, but Venezuela has a significant population of Hezbollah. And of course, Venezuela, Maduro is pals with Iran. Are you concerned about the Hezbollah presence in this hemisphere?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Hezbollah. You know, I would remind everybody, Hezbollah launched thousands of missiles into Iran. I've witnessed where they've actually killed a dozen children on a soccer field. That's the kind of what Hezbollah is, and I fully supported, you know, what Israel was necessary to neutralize that now. So for me, I don't particularly grieve narco terrorists. You know, we should be talking more about the National Guard members that were shot, and we lost one now too. So for me, I just might have a different view on things.
And of course, I mean, the Hezbollah has been linked to some of the narco trafficking coming out of Venezuela, which is one of the things that President Trump has been trying to eliminate, the narco trafficking coming here.
Well, and again, I of course, based now. So for me, you know, absolutely, there's been a war against America with a lot of the drug trade, and now but that gets now for me. I think it's appropriate to do an investigation for those things, but right now, in terms of this conversation now, I've been more focused on some other issues.
President Trump has been trying to get peace between Ukraine and Russia, and it seems like almost like he's knocking his head against the wall. He had Putin coming to Alaska in August to no avail. He's had Witkoff and his son-in-law in Russia. There's been so much of an effort to try to get Putin to at least agree to something. Do you have any other ideas of how to go about doing this? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, gosh, I sure hope so. I hope they are able to achieve peace. Now, this war is going on 4 years. This war is not sustainable. You know, the Ukrainian people deserve peace now. And now I do believe the president is the only person that can really help broker that kinds of things. I've been firmly on the side of the Ukrainians through this entire thing. They absolutely weren't the instigator. They didn't start this war. But now this war needs to end now. And I am absolutely supportive for they're able to achieve this kinds of peace. And I was one of the rare Democrats that actually celebrated the peace that visited in Gaza and that sent all the hostages home as well too. I want peace. I want peace. And I'm going to support an administration, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican one. I think that's I mean, who can't we all agree that this war needs to end? And if that peace comes from a different party, you have to acknowledge and celebrate it and cheer for it.
Let me ask you a random question. How do you like your job? Is it a good job or is it just frustrating?
Do I like my job? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that
is it? I mean, like.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
It's
do you
a
like
supreme,
your job?
Oh no, it's an honor. Absolutely, to be the voice of Pennsylvania. Absolutely, it's absolutely an honor. And one of the great honors of being a senator is to stand with Israel and to have. And I think I am representing Pennsylvania's views. I think Pennsylvania is the one state that really keeps people honest. And now we remember that we have a very, very divided state. But now that's one of the reasons why I refuse to call the other side, they're fascists, they're Nazis, are trying to destroy our nation. We have different views. I live amidst, and I know and I love many people that are on the other side now too. It's like I'm trying to find a way forward, and it's one of the best part of this job, and it's one of the honors to represent Pennsylvania, the most purple state in the nation. So it's, again, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of this conversation.
Well, I appreciate the answer because I know it's a challenge with everything that goes on in this city. It's a challenge sometimes, you know, politics, and I don't think sometimes that people realize that it's a heavy lift sometimes to be to represent in the House or the Senate. Senator John Fetterman, thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Always grateful.
Thank you. And today, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, subpoenaed former Special Counsel Jack Smith for a deposition. In the subpoena, Jordan directs Smith to appear before the committee on December 17th. The deposition is set to take place behind closed doors and will examine Smith's investigations into former candidate, now President, Donald Trump. Smith brought 2 indictments against Trump. The first case was over Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election and the events leading up to January 6, 2021. That case was, of course, in federal court here in Washington. The second indictment alleged Trump mishandled classified documents after his first term as president ended. That case resulted in a search of Mar-a-Lago and was in federal court in South Florida. Smith dropped both cases after Trump won the 2024 presidential election. In addition to demanding with a subpoena Smith's appearance for a deposition, Jordan's subpoena also demands that Smith produce documents and communications related to his time as special counsel. Coming up, did the Democrats see this one coming? No, I'm not talking about the Republican win in the special congressional election last night in Tennessee. I'm talking about something else. Find out what after the break.
You served your country with honor. Now get the benefits you've rightfully earned. Paul R. Lawrence has written the book every veteran should own, Veterans Benefits for You. This step-by-step guide breaks down what you need to know, from financial compensation and disabilities to information for dependents and parents. This book is a must-read for all servicemen and women. Get your free copy today with our special offer. Call the number on your screen or go online to order.
Hi folks, I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at empowerourfuturecoalition.com.
President Trump is taking questions in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
Probably had some stupid ones, and you had some smart ones, but there were bad people, too. Because not all of them were stupid. You can't cheat on elections like they did and be stupid, okay?
Did you talk to him a second time or just that one time?
What's that?
To Majoro, did you speak to him again?
No, I didn't.
Mr. President, if you do find... When you spoke with Mr. Witkoff and with Mr. Kushner...
Last night,
did they give you the sense that President Putin still wants to end the war, wants to make peace?
He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now, whether or not,
you believe?
that was their impression. Their impression was that he would like to see the war ended. I think he'd like to get back to dealing a more normal life. I think he'd like to be trading with the United States of America, frankly, instead of, losing thousands of soldiers a week. But their impression was very strongly that he'd like to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
Mr. President, if the boat strikes, if it is found that survivors were actually killed while clinging on to that boat, should Secretary Hegseth, Admiral Bradley, or others be punished?
I think you're going to find that this is war, that these people were killing our people by the millions, actually, if you look over a few years. I think last year we lost close to 300,000 people were killed. That's not mentioning all the families. Have you seen what happens with the families of not only the people killed, the people that are trying to get their son or their daughter off of this poison that they've been fed? I think you're going to find that there's a very receptive ear to doing exactly what they're doing, taking out those boats. And very soon we're going to start doing it on land too, because we know every route, we know every house, we know where they manufacture this crap, we know where they put it all together. And I think you're going to see it very soon on land also. Yeah, please.
So to be clear, you support the decision to kill survivors after the initial
No, I
strike.
support the decision to knock out the boats, and whoever's piloting those boats, most of them are gone, but whoever are piloting those boats, they're guilty of trying to kill people in our country. Yeah, please?
The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Jack Smith to ask about his investigation of you. I wondered, for a deposition, I wondered if you'd prefer to see that as a hearing so that the American public can see the questions and the responses more easily.
I'd rather see it probably at a hearing. Look, Jack Smith is a thug. He's a failed prosecutor. He's a bad man. He's an evil man. He hurt a lot of people. Forget about me. You know, I do this stuff, but I got indicted many times by a guy that they were dismissed. He's a bad guy. He's a sick man. There's something wrong with him, actually. I think Jack Smith is a sick man. There's something really wrong with him. I'd rather see him testify publicly because there's no way he can answer the questions. But Biden knew this was going along. Kamala knew it was going along. And there's a lot of things happening right now that they don't like. One of the things is the Autopen. Everything he signed, almost, with the exception of the pardon of his wonderful son, Hunter, just about everything he signed was not signed by him. He had no knowledge of it. He didn't know what it was. People sitting around the beautiful Resolute desk knew exactly what it was. And those people are guilty, in my opinion, of a major crime. Everything that was signed by that Autopen, the man operating the Autopen, and I'm sure there are more than one because I think some of the people can operate it themselves. Some of the high-level people operated themselves. They would just go in and sign his name with an Autopen onto very important documents, not only pardons, but policy, maybe CAFE standards, okay, as an example. Who signed CAFE? If you ask Biden, what's a CAFE standard, he would have absolutely no idea. He'd say, where is the CAFE located? The guy didn't know anything. Look, that just shows you what a rigged election can be, but you understand what I'm saying. Thank you.
You've had conversations with...
I did, with Jensen.
Right, so...
Smart man.
In your conversations with him, have you kind of given a sense of where you are with export controls and the types of chips that the VA can get to China?
Sure, he knows very well. He's done an amazing job. NVIDIA, very good. Yeah.
Mr. President, when do you expect for phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan to be implemented? And
Well, it's going along well. You know, they had a problem today, I understand, with a bomb that went off and hurt some people pretty badly, probably killed some people. They're telling me it just happened. But it's going on. We have peace in the Middle East. People don't realize it. We have tremendous support. 59 countries. There's tremendous support. But phase 2 is moving along. Yeah, it's going to happen pretty soon.
Mr. President, did you speak with House Republican leadership about your decision to pardon Congressman Henry Cuellar? And are you concerned that you made a vulnerable Democrat perhaps less vulnerable with that decision?
It didn't matter. He's a respected person. He was treated very badly because he said that people should not be allowed to pour into our country. And he was right. He didn't like open borders. He was on the border. You know, he represents a very respected man. He represents the people on the border. And he saw what was happening. And as soon as he made that statement, I then said, I'll bet he gets indicted. And that's what happened. You know, I put out my truth from that. Well, I did a truth. Wonderful truth. We love truth. But what happened is he got indicted for speaking the truth. And his wife got indicted, Imelda. And that's sort of a first. Usually they leave the wives alone, right? Don't they, Congressman? Typically they indict somebody, put him in jail for the rest of his life, but the wife can just sit home and cry, or she'll find a new man. You know? A lot of times they find a new man that makes them much happier. In fact, a lot of times they like that man better than the one that's in jail.
Mr. President, thank you. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also
I
saying
wouldn't be
that
proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because, you know, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent. Walz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with... go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. Without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon, I hope. But what Somalia, what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the governor. A lot of it starts with Barack Hussein Obama, because that's when people started coming in. And you have to have people come in that are going to love our country, cherish our country. They want to kiss our country goodnight. They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. This is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople because they don't represent the interests of our country. Anybody else?
Mr. President, the automakers spent billions on meeting the Biden EV rules. Should they be able to recoup that somehow, given the change? And there's a question about the bill.
No. I'm not letting them recoup. They're going to do just fine. You know how they recoup? From this point forward, they'll do very well.
Can you also talk about the USMCA and what you're thinking about renegotiating that with the automakers?
Well, that's just an ongoing thing. It expires in about a year, and we'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada. But look, Mexico and Canada have taken advantage of the United States, like just about every other country, in all fairness. It's not them, I'm not blaming them. But every country, because we had stupid people running our country. We had a lot of stupid people running. That's why we have $38 trillion in debt. But the beautiful thing about the tariffs is we'll start paying off that debt. The money coming in, they're finding money in our country now that they never knew existed. The other day, $30 billion. Where did it come from? I said, why don't you check the tariff shelf? They said, sir, that tariff hasn't started yet. It doesn't start till January. I said, no, it started 2 months ago. They called back, sir, you're right, it was from tariffs. No, we have a whole different country. I hope the Supreme Court, I pray that the Supreme Court understands the importance of the sensible, really, I mean, this would be country threatening if something happened with regard to that. You know, the people that brought that case are bad people. They're very bad people. They hate our country. They represent foreign countries, including China, but they represent, and China's paying us a lot of money now in tariffs, but they represent people that really don't like our country much. And I know some of them, and they're scum. In my opinion, they're scum. They're absolute scum. And they're not suing for any good reason. They're just suing to see if they can stop it, because they make money if this country does badly. You know? So, but we're taking in trillions of dollars. We're stopping wars. We have great national security because of tariffs. And then to think that we have to even go and justify this. The reason a lot of these people, I can tell you this, maybe we would have had the political people, we wouldn't have these people without tariffs. The people that are up here from Stellantis and Ford and General Motors, great companies, including this gentleman, they wouldn't be here today if we didn't have tariffs. They'd be building their plants in Mexico and other places. They're leaving Mexico and they're leaving Canada. They're leaving because they ripped off our country. They took our businesses away from us. And now, because of tariffs, they're all coming back. So it's a great thing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, you call Somalians garbage.
What about saying thank you guys? Keep moving. Thank you, cameras. Thank you. Keep moving. Thank you guys.
President Trump just wrapped up taking questions in the Oval Office, as he's so apt to do. And one of the things he mentioned was the pardoning of Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp and former Special Assistant President Biden and former Press Secretary of the First Lady Michael LaRosa joins me. Michael, he's a Democrat. That's your party, but it's a Republican president pardoning him. Your thought?
Yeah. I can't imagine that the National Republican Campaign Committee is pretty happy today because, he would have been a #1 target for them to pick up. He always is. They spend a lot of money there. So I think President Trump kind of took that off the table.
We've tried to beat Henry Cuellar several times, come up a little short. And I think I've talked to President Trump about pardons. He really intervenes on behalf of people that he feels are screwed by the system. And I think he believes that Henry Cuellar was screwed by the system because he didn't want an open border. And, that's going to trump politics for President Trump. It's one of the reasons why people like him so much.
So what happens now in the House? I mean, Cuellar said that, of course, the first thing everyone thought was, is he going to switch parties? Because Biden didn't.
We've tried to get him to switch parties. I hope he switches parties. I think, most of the party switchers make a calculation. And if I switch parties, is it going to be easier in re-election? I don't see him changing his policies themselves.
But he votes
that
a lot
much.
with Republicans too.
A lot. He's no conservative, but he's better than certainly almost every Democrat in the House.
Michael, should the Democrats be doing a dance after last night in Tennessee, winning that the Republican did win by 20 points, but won by only 9 points?
I don't think so, but I think it's going to soothe the soul for a little bit and give Democrats some kind of tea leaf to read. Though I would just caution against it. It's not a district that Democrats are going to play in or compete in. It's special elections are special for a reason. It was getting attention because it was the only game in town. But Democrats just need to focus on recruitment. Recruitment is the answer. To everything, and good recruitment, candidates that match their district. And what last night did say was that was not a candidate who represented the majority of her district.
Matt, I can't get over in recent time. You've got Mark Green, that's the Tennessee Republican, and he quit. You've got Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin. He quit. He was a Republican. And you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene quitting as well. And these aren't for health reasons or anything else. They're pretty selfish reasons why they're quitting, because Marjorie doesn't like the heat, so she's getting out of the kitchen. And Mark Green started a business venture.
Look, I think if you run for re-election, you're making a kind of a commitment to the voters that you're going to be there for your term, unless you have some kind of major.
But to your party too. I mean, with a razor-thin majority, that's pretty bad for the Republican Party.
Speaker Johnson's been very frustrated. First of all, he was frustrated a little bit with the White House because they kept picking House members, and I think they're doing much less of that because Speaker Johnson was like, "Look, you want to pass the big, beautiful bill? I need a little bit of a margin here," and I think they have a 4-seat margin. They will have a 4-seat margin. When these 2 other seats are determined as well. I mean, that is tiny. That means if who he calls Rand Paul Jr. from Kentucky, wanders for conservative reasons, that's 1 less.
Massive.
It doesn't take very many to cause them to not be able to win a vote. It's one of the reasons why legislation is kind of gridlocked right now, because just a couple of Republicans in the House mean Republicans don't pass their bill.
President Trump's always spicy in his Q&As. He doesn't, he speaks like a regular person, not necessarily so eloquently in how he describes people. But
I think it's eloquent.
Whatever. But anyway, so the prize, though, may go to your Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, because he said today about former Vice President Kamala Harris that she had taken a shot at him in her book, 107 Days About Her Campaign. He was told that today. Apparently, he didn't read her book. And then he came back and said she, meaning the former Vice President Kamala Harris, is trying to sell books and cover her whatever, blank.
Yeah. Look, I loved the visceral reaction because it's hard to tell with him occasionally. And that's going to be his biggest Achilles heel, is that he's over-polished and that he's a little bit over-practiced.
He's not a regular guy?
Well, I think a quote like that, the only thing that would have been better for Josh Shapiro was if that would have been on camera. And I'm being serious. Like, the public actually is attracted, as you see with Trump, to candidates who show who they really are, but that means you have to place yourself in unscripted environments. And the thing about Governor Shapiro, he's incredible, and he knows how to win in blue, like in red and purple areas of Pennsylvania. But he was a staffer for many years, and staffers themselves drive a culture of protecting the boss, that the boss should always be prepared and protected and scripted. And he's going to have to get out of that mindset if he wants to appeal to anybody. Because I think people hate politicians as a class. People don't like the politician. They like the candidate who is the average Joe or the non-politician. That's going to be where he
But not
struggles.
boring.
I don't like boring
No,
either.
I don't like boring.
No, I mean, just watch that television.
Matt, looking ahead to 2028, who do you think the Republican Party sweats the most as being the candidate in the Democratic lineup?
Anybody who doesn't appear to be one of these woke kind of caricatures. So, is Josh Shapiro going to play that role?
Is he too vanilla in the sense that he doesn't?
No.
I mean, his
No, I don't
house
think he
almost
is.
got firebombed and nobody paid attention.
I think the key is Spanberger's win in Virginia. You see these Democrats, unlike the mayor of New York City, running as fake moderates. They're not moderates. They're fully left, but they run as fake moderates. And the real question for the Democratic Party is that whoever gets through their primary is going to have to be very, very far to the left, right? Which will make them very unappealing to America, which is much more common sense.
But isn't that the way both parties have always done?
No.
Is that to get your nomination, you've got to run to the far right or the
No,
far
I think
left?
it's different on the Republican side. I think Trump has kind of broken the mold for us. Yes, you have to be a conservative and you have to be solid on a certain number of issues. But what Trump showed is that if you can appeal to new constituencies, you can be your own person. He did on building the wall, fighting the Chamber of
He drove them
Commerce.
away from engagement in the world, from National Security Party. He drove them away from everything the party was under George W. Bush. That party doesn't exist anymore. But I give Trump credit for being himself and bringing the party to him instead of going to the party. Last summer, 2024, Kamala Harris's biggest problem was everything she said in that Democratic primary 4 years earlier. It killed her. Her filling out those questionnaires, Democrats, stop filling out questionnaires.
What killed her is getting at 2% of the polls.
Michael
Somehow she became the
LaRosa.
nominee.
Michael LaRosa, Matt Schlapp, thank you both. It is time for the outrage of the day. A group of New Jersey school staffers are being accused of hosting and participating in pedophile parties. You heard me right, pedophile parties. According to a wrongful termination lawsuit filed by an ex-district employee, staffers at the Pinelands Regional School District participated in more than one dress as your favorite pedophile party. These parties allegedly took place back in August in 2023. According to the lawsuit, one of the staffers who attended these parties is also being accused of having an inappropriate relationship with an underage student. The lawsuit accuses the staffer of frequently inviting the underage student to hang out with him after school. Now, Melissa Pomfrey, the ex-district employee who filed this lawsuit, says her complaints were not taken seriously by the school district. Instead, she says she was demoted from Pinelands Regional High School to their middle school after raising her concerns. Pomfrey also alleges that back in May, she was informed the school district would not be renewing her contract. This as a result of her complaints. Pinelands Regional School District Superintendent, though, Melissa McCooley, is denying the allegations. She told NJ.com, quote, "The Pinelands Regional School District takes all matters involving the safety and well-being of our students with the utmost seriousness. However, we will not dignify this baseless lawsuit with a response," end quote. A trial date has not yet been set, but it's fair to say if there is a dress as your favorite pedophile party hosted by school staffers, that would be outrageous. Coming up, what came out of yesterday's meeting with Vladimir Putin? Did he budge? That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next.
And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans. Compare drug coverage. Compare costs. See if you can save. And make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Compare plans now at Medicare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
What do you say? I love you. And I'm alive. Eric was a 50 cal gunner. He wanted to help his fellow soldiers. And he served a total of 4 years.
What?
Twice, yeah, he did two tours in Iraq. He was hit by an armor-piercing round, right above his right ear, exited above his left ear.
They served with honor, and now it's our turn to help them. Join Wounded Warrior Project. Call or go online with your gift of just $19 a month to help America's injured warriors get the life-changing care they need.
Eric wanted a family so bad. That's the hardest thing when he looks at me and he says, when am I going to get married? He's so severely injured, he can't have his own kids. And he's not mad about it, but he's sad sometimes.
He's been through a tough life, and he's come through smiling.
Warriors like Eric need to know that we won't leave them behind. Our donors help us provide life-changing programs and services at no cost to warriors. Please call or go online with your gift of $19 a month, and we'll send you this blanket honoring the 250th anniversary of American independence and freedom.
Wounded Warrior Project, they have not forgotten the sacrifice that our family did.
They still know we're here. That means so much to me, because this is never over.
All the donors who keep believing in Eric, I can't put in words how much it means to him.
Thank you, he says.
The need is urgent. Please give a little to those who gave so much for us.
Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft. If something happens, LifeLock provides a dedicated US-based restoration specialist with expertise to make the right calls and take the right steps to fix your case start to finish. In fact, we're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Don't face identity theft alone. Protect your future and finances with the leader in identity theft protection, LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
Does President Putin really want peace? A 5-hour meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and the president's son-in-law and former advisor Jared Kushner led to no substantial breakthroughs. Foreign Affairs correspondent Alex Salvi joins me. Alex, I mean, it seems like every time anyone tries to talk to Putin, whether it was President Trump in Alaska or this is it, Putin doesn't budge.
Yeah, and I think today the response that we saw is really telling within itself. As soon as Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff returned back to the United States, we've heard radio silence today. We haven't heard anything from the American side about what was talked about during those meetings, what is coming out of them, and I think that kind of speaks to exactly what was happening. Now, really quickly, on the Russian side, they are saying that Putin did turn down some of the proposals. They accepted some proposals as well, but they say they want to continue these negotiations.
Did they say what they accepted? Was there any report?
They did not. There are some reports coming out of Russian state media that says it's really about those land concessions. And of course, we know that that is one of the sticking points for Ukraine as well. And this entire negotiating process, that is probably the, if not one of the issues that they can agree on.
What's interesting, it comes out of Russian media because it's all state-owned, so it's really coming from the Kremlin.
Of course. And I always try to make this point. The narrative that we're seeing on our televisions is very different than the one that the Russian people are seeing. If you were to be watching Russian television tonight at 4 p.m., whatever it is, the record over there, what they're hearing is that NATO is already at war with Russia. The United States has been at war with Russia. Now President Trump is trying to break that. That's really what they're getting. And they see Ukraine as the aggressor. That's really what President Putin has tried to paint the picture of, but of course it's different than the one we're seeing.
I speak periodically to an American who is in prison of Russia, of all things. He gets a phone call out to me, and he says that on the Russian TV, that all the Russian TV says about how great they're doing. They're huge successes. It's just incredible what they're doing. But in the meantime, we're hearing that they're losing 7,000 a week, almost 30,000 a month.
And that's what Ukraine is trying to do when you see those long-range drone incursions into Russian territory. Yes, on one hand, they do want to hit their infrastructure, some of their refineries, to make the Russian people feel the pain of the pump, if you will, and let them know that there are ramifications to this war that are inside of Russia, not just inside of Ukraine. But it's also to bring the war to those people as well and let them know that this is a conflict that is taking place. And once those people start seeing body bags coming home of loved ones, that's when the war is really going to become real. And to your point, the death toll is getting up there.
You know, if I were Witkoff, I'd be pulling my hair out. I mean, 5 hours to sit there and basically, well, you know, I mean, as far as we know, that nothing was achieved. You know, I mean, there are no huge breakthroughs that we'd be hearing perhaps, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, he has worked so hard to get something done.
And it wasn't just a 5-hour meeting. It was the fact that it started 3 hours late. That's
yeah,
something
right, I
that's
forgot
become
that.
the modus operandi.
That's so, but I mean, even that. I mean, like, why would Putin's people do that to our special envoy?
It is a little mind-boggling because remember a couple of weeks ago, it appears as if the Kremlin, it hasn't been confirmed that it was them, leaked this transcript of some of the conversations that were going on between two Russian advisors as well as Steve Witkoff. And I'm still wondering why they would want to do that, because they essentially did burn Witkoff for some of those comments. It's either that they're going after Witkoff itself, or maybe there are some divisions within the Kremlin.
I wonder if President Trump will finally just wash his hands of this, because what's in it for the United States other than that we want to be, you know, we want to do the right thing in the world. But at some point, when do you give up?
Well, President Trump says that it's the deaths that is really getting to him. It's not the idea that he just wants the Nobel Prize or anything. And comments from First Lady Melania Trump kind of back that up as well. But if you look at who's in these negotiating teams, yes, on the American side, it's Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. When they met with the Ukrainians sent military people.
Well, that was accidental, though. I mean, Ukraine. I thought the U.S. sent a military person to discuss drones and just happened to be there at the time.
That's right. But my point being that when Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with the Ukrainians brought military people. That's what they were discussing. Yesterday, when they met with the Russians, they brought an economic advisor, Dmitry Kirill,
who's actually been on this show.
That's right. And you guys talked about foreign investment. So maybe that is what the United States is hoping to get out of this, if anything.
Anyway, Alex Salvi, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, could Texas hold the key to solving a decade-long mystery about a missing plane? That when the record continues.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
The Black Friday sale is on with the lowest price of the year. Order online at dropthepounds.com/Black Friday, promo code Black Friday. That's dropthepounds.com/Black Friday, promo code Black Friday.
What's gold is new again, pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
radical jihadists are not done. Iran promises death to America. They've built sleeper terror cells in the U.S. They support terror groups out to destroy Israel, including Hamas, whose founding charter calls for Islam to dominate the world.
The young people have been educated to believe that the most sacred thing they do is stab a Christian in the heart.
The only democracy in the Middle East that supports religious freedom is Israel. Standing for freedom, not terror.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
It just became a lot harder for a Nigerian national to get a visa. The Trump administration is cracking down on anti-Christian violence with a new visa restriction policy. The new policy follows recent attacks on Nigerian churches and kidnapping of hundreds of Catholic school children. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the new policy will allow the State Department to deny visas to those who have, quote, directed, authorized, significantly supported, participated in, or carried out violations of religious freedom, end quote. Immediate family members may also face visa restrictions. Earlier, I spoke with a spokesperson and special advisor to the president of Nigeria, Sunday Akin Derry. Nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.
We were colleagues at Voice of America, and you are from Nigeria. A lot of people probably don't know a lot about Nigeria, so let's start first with what's the official language of Nigeria, and how many languages are spoken in Nigeria?
The official language is English, of course, and a vast population of about 230 million and counting. We have about 220 to 240 ethnic tribes in Nigeria, but English is the official language.
It's because it's always so fascinating to me, so many languages are spoken in so many parts of on the African continent.
Absolutely.
All right. Your current job, you're not at Voice of America. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm the special advisor on media and public communications to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the spokesperson.
What is the relationship Nigeria has with the Trump administration like?
Well, I think I'll respond this way. The relationship between Nigeria and the United States is long-standing. It's been cordial. Even during military dictatorship, we had a lot of support, robust support, when Nigeria went into Liberia to help stabilize Liberia. When Nigeria went to Sierra Leone using the ECOMOG forces, we had a lot of support from the American government. And when we transited into civil democracy, that's been on for almost 27 years, we've had the same warm and robust diplomatic relationship. And I think that has carried over, first, to the first term of President Trump, and then the second term right now. That relationship is still warm and is still cordial.
Why is it important?
It's important because, first, Nigeria, of course, has adopted the presidential system, the American presidential system. And that's important, a full embrace of all the tenets of democracy, the practice of democracy, the theory, and all of that. That's one. Two, when it comes to trade, the trade between Nigeria and America is huge. Nigeria, of course, is an oil-producing country. That's important. You also look at the immigrant community in America right now. Nigeria tops that list, especially when you look at professionals in virtually all the critical fields in America. So when you look at trade, when you look at education, when you look at culture, etc., we have that warm and robust relationship.
I suspect if you raise Nigeria with a lot of Americans, the first thing they think about, they read about Christians being persecuted. Some people have denied it. Is it a fact that Christians have been persecuted or even slaughtered, or is it not a fact?
Well, I don't think it's a fact. To the extent that I can provide this context, what we have in Nigeria is the fact that in the last 15-some years, we've had this terrorist, the Boko Haram incident, and over the years, over succeeding administrations, we've had that transmute into various forms of banditry, kidnapping, etc. And Nigerians impacted by the conflicts? Absolutely. Are Christians impacted? Yes. Are Muslims impacted? But there is no deliberate state policy that is supported against Christianity or Christians in Nigeria.
So it's fair to say it's not the government doing it, but there are terrorist groups like Boko Haram, and I remember they kidnapped a schoolgirl years ago.
There's a regional dimension to this terrorism that we have. There's a regional dimension, and that's why the conversation must be enlarged. It's transnational. There's a regional dimension to it. You have the Sahel region exploding. You have Libya that fell. All the guns came in through. You have porous borders, 1,420 square meters of borderline with Niger Republic. Across the West African sub-region, over 4,500 porous borders. So you have a lot of ungoverned spaces without government authority. And these terrorists, these bandits, who now have international finance. You know, from Boko Haram, we have splinter groups. We have ISWAP, we have the Lakurawas, and all of that. They are all across the country.
Do you feel like I do? I mean, so we both at Voice America, and there's a lot of controversy at Voice America here in the United States. You can't watch it here. It's very expensive. But, you know, in place, it was created to get behind the Iron Curtain back in the 40s.
Yes.
And right now, the thing where I really wish we had a robust Voice America is that people in Russia watch Russian TV, state-owned TV. There's no sort of, you know, we don't have Voice America going in there. So they think they're winning the war. They think it's a just war. And they don't get any other opinion because, I mean...
You know, Greta, I can say this, even though Nigeria has a very robust and dynamic media back home, but I think this is a time to have the Voice of America resuscitated and reporting directly from Nigeria. Because, of course, it's going to also help both the American perspective especially, because you can get a comprehensive analysis and view of what's happening on ground. And, you know, right now you have a pro-American president who schooled here in Chicago, who worked with one of the biggest accounting firms in America until he went into politics. So he's now the president in situ, and he understands the dynamics of development and understands the American policy when it comes to development and peace and security across the region.
Well, it's a big world. It's nice to see you, and maybe they will revive Voice America so the American word, you know, gets out more. Well, I hope so. Anyway, it's very nice to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
In March of 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared over the Indian Ocean without a trace. Could the mystery of where doomed Flight 370 is finally be solved? Perhaps, since today, Malaysia's Transport Ministry announced that later this month, a deep-sea search will resume. The search will be conducted by a company based in Texas. The company, called Ocean Infinity, builds marine robotics. Here is more news. If the plane is found, the Malaysian government will award this Texas company $70 million. The new search begins December 30th. It will last about 55 days. As you probably recall, 11 years ago, Flight MH370 veered off course, and then that was it. It vanished from air traffic radar. The plane was on a routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. 239 people were on board, just vanished. Coming up, somebody got too drunk on Black Friday and caused a huge scene. That when the record continues.
It's true. I am an America First, liberty-loving Latino. That's why I know this country is worth fighting for. That's why the Chris Salcedo Show will always tell you the truth.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.
The buy one, get one free sale has been extended at Cabinets to Go. Come in today and shop our huge selection of quality cabinets in the latest styles and colors you'll love. And here's the best part. Our expert designers will help you bring your dream kitchen to life with a free 3D design. It's never been easier or more affordable to upgrade your space. Visit CabinetsToGo.com to find the showroom near you. But hurry, these deals won't last long. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America, with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
My husband is Miguel Cervantes, who was a firefighter with the Rancho Cucamonga Fire District. That's what he absolutely loved. My husband's cancer is directly related to his service as a firefighter. My immediate thought after he was gone was, how am I going to do this? Tunnel to Towers said that it would be their honor to help me out by covering my mortgage. To say that it's been a weight lifted off my shoulder would be an understatement.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
A mesothelioma diagnosis is overwhelming, but you don't have to go through it alone. Our firm is exclusively dedicated to only serving mesothelioma victims and their families. With decades of success, our team of nurses and attorneys will fight for the compensation and care you deserve. We'll even come to you. This is our MesoCare promise. Call us now so you can focus on what matters most.
Call now and we'll come to you for a free consultation. Call 800-600-3850 or go to mesobook.com.
We have an intruder, a raccoon, and not just any raccoon, but an intoxicated raccoon. Over the weekend, the intruder broke into a liquor store in Virginia. Once inside, he decided to smash bottles and have a party. He spilled liquor all over the floor. He then proceeded to get drunk. The drunken culprit was found passed out in the bathroom. Animal control was called, and the raccoon was brought to an animal shelter. After he sobered up in the drunk tank, the raccoon was safely released back into the wild. Holiday tip, enjoy the party, but do not go full raccoon. Drunk as a skunk is no longer the phrase to be used. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening.